Our next virtual session is a very exciting conversation around the key question: is your video data working hard enough to maximize your advertising revenues? So, answer to this we'll get by our two very well-known industry experts. The session is virtually joined by Synamedia's Senior Solutions Consultant, Mr. Arun Raghuraman, and Dentsu Webchutney's Managing Partner, Mr. Shah. So before that, we get them live virtually on screens with us. I would like to request my team to please play the Synamedia's AV that we have made.
Most people are more complex than they first appear. They have multiple interests that form seemingly unpredictable patterns of viewing behavior. The more you understand these patterns, the more you'll find out about your customers, and the better you can tailor your video service to keep them happy. That's where Synamedia Clarissa comes in. We help you to capture viewer attention, boost retention, reduce churn, and even increase ad revenue by providing actionable insights from your customer data. Your viewers get to enjoy content that's perfect for their quirks.
So, can we have them live on screens in front of our attendees to have this wonderful conversation on Mr. Arun Raghuraman, who is the Senior Solutions Consultant of Synamedia, and Mr. Shah from Dentsu Webchutneys. Welcome both of you to WidNet 2022. Now the stage is all yours. Every one of us are watching you here.
Yes, thank you so much. I'll go first. I'll quickly introduce myself. My name is Harsh. Apologies for my tropical look, but we do live in a tropical country, so I think it's fine. I take care of business at Webchutney. So yeah, that's me.
So thank you, WidNet, and thank you, ITV, for having me. My name is Arun Raghuraman. I'm a solutions consultant, and my primary role is to help out various video service providers in terms of solutions on the data analytics side, as well as on the advertising side. So let me get things started off with a very quick view on how data and advertising can go hand in hand, and how this entire piece can work together for businesses. Now, something that we've seen very often is that video services collect a huge amount of data. It could be all across, the kind of devices that people are viewing, the content that they're viewing, how they're viewing the content. But in addition, the new data that can be thrown into the mix is first-party data as well as third-party data, which can add to demographics as well as various other information about the users. Now, converting all of that data into formats that are usable, that are that can be managed by businesses to derive insights and then drive actions can be quite a challenge. I guess my presentation is not on screen, so while you bring it up, I'll continue talking about it. Some of the things that challenges that we see is the amount of events, the amount of data that comes in, even from a few 100,000 subscribers, can range in the millions and billions of rows. To process all of that can be quite challenging, and to make sense out of it, it can be even more daunting. And that's where Synamedia's Clarissa product is able to provide all of that and take away the hassle of wrangling with data and move into taking business decisions instead. So overall, of course, data and insights can help you reduce operational costs, reduce churn, as we were hearing about it in the previous session. And in addition, what can also be done is it can be used to engage with customers on the platform, see how customers are actually getting to the content that they want. Also look at what is the return on investment on various different content, what is working, what is not working, who wants to see what kind of content do they want to see. But what we're going to focus on a little bit more today is in terms of how data and insights can actually help in terms of maximizing the advertising revenues. How can we understand segments that are important for advertisers, and how can we understand how do those segments behave? What do they like and what do they not like? So some of the things that a few charts, of course, because it is a data session. Now, some of the things that we've seen, while there are segments can vary across different geographies, different areas, different advertisers. Some of the common segments that people tend to work with are households with kids, working adults, or non-working adults. So a few insights that we got working with a lot of data. I try to keep it to these because these are segments that everybody would be able to relate to. So what we see is working adults generally tend to lean towards VOD a whole lot more than households with kids or non-working adults who are both still a little bit predisposed to the linear side of it. In addition, one of the things that we also noticed is that working adults actually have a preference in terms of which devices do they want to look at specific content. So for instance, they may want to look at movies as well as news and sports on, say, set-top boxes or on the large screen. However, when it comes to TV shows, they have a preference towards mobile devices because either because they're watching it on the road or because it's just more convenient. And device strategy, primarily because working adults probably watch 1/5 of the total viewing duration that, say, a household with kids has. In addition, a household with kids may watch the same content genres, but then they tend to watch very different programs as compared to, say, household without kids, working adults, non-working adults. Now, to an extent, because advertisers would like to reach all of these, it's important to have a multi-platform strategy. It's important to have a multi-device strategy. And that's where another product of Synamedia, Iris, has been able to effectively implement some of those strategies in order to make effective targeted advertising. So I'm not sure how many of you have heard of Sky's AdSmart, but Synamedia played a big part in terms of the development of that. And that has helped bring in almost about 1,000 new advertisers on board, primarily because a lot of small and niche advertisers are daunted by the amount of cost required to advertise across a country in a medium as powerful as the large screen. However, with targeted advertising, with data and insights, being able to sort of package it into small bite-sized chunks, it's possible for niche and smaller brick and mortar advertisers to be able to get onto this platform. In addition, of course, the larger brands may be able to customize their messages as well as their content in terms of how they want to reach their target audiences. So in short, just to give you a quick view on how those dashboards look like, it's possible to look at various different segments depending on the kind of segments that are of interest to the advertisers. It's possible to understand what do they want to look at, how do they want to look at that content, where do they sit, what is their total size, what are their preferences in terms of devices, in terms of content types, and in terms of the hour of day. And any first party, third party data can be overlaid on this to add a whole lot more color and a whole lot more information. In short, what this can do is bring in a whole bunch of new advertisers onto the platform. So even your local plumbing business, which is probably restricted to a very small pin code, will be able to get onto the platform and advertise on it. So I'll take a pause here and talk to you, Harsh. I want to understand what are the challenges that you see within this industry, specifically in terms of, say, personalization or reaching targeted audiences.
So, Arun, I think this is great. These are great insights, and I'm definitely stealing a couple of slides from you for sure. I think one thing that you spoke about was how do we, and it seems like one of the most daunting mediums for smaller brands with probably who don't have deep pockets or to run at a massive frequency that much larger brands do. How can we help them there and to ensure that they're reaching out to the right audience, and because the focus needs to be very, very, very sharp, emphasis on the very, very, very sharp part of it, so that there is maximum ROI, right? So if you could give us some dope there, I think that'd be great.
Sure. So efficiency, of course, becomes very, very important in these kind of cases. So when we are looking at extremely targeted advertisements, now considering some of the local advertisements, what happened in case of Sky as well was there were a bunch of local car dealerships which were operating in very niche locations, maybe a few postal codes altogether. And they were able to use targeted advertising. It wouldn't make sense for them to advertise across the entire country. But then, because a lot of your pay TV operators, of course, have your postal code, have that additional information, have that data which is allowing them to target those specific postal codes. In addition, of course, there are the niche advertisers that are there. Now, say a golf equipment manufacturer or otherwise somebody who sells fishing equipment is looking for a very specific target. What data and insights can tell you are what kind of content do various different audiences watch. So if somebody is watching golfing programs or if somebody is watching purely, fishing programs, that is a segment that you want to target. So it allows data and insights allow you to create those new segments which may be of interest to advertisers or identify a few of those segment households as well. And using that, there is, of course, technology now. Iris is one example, which is able to provide those ads only to those households or only to those segments. It's not necessary for them to blast out a campaign all over the country, but just to get into those.
No, that makes sense. I think great insights there. Now, moving on to, like we've already spoken about EdTech, everyone knows about MarTech, right? We at Dentsu, there's something that we have, which is like an internal program that we do, which is called CULT, which is culture and technology. So I want to just adapt that same model. And if I were to put it in the form of a content tech, right? And it actually brings the ball back to the brand's court, is that how do we, as brands, how do we use this data to not only advertise to the audience, but also feed it back to the creative teams to ensure that there is content that is created, for the right audience who's probably watching a certain type of content, right? So if someone is very much into K-drama, how do I bring in those nuances, those fashion sensibilities, lifestyle sensibilities into the content that I'm doing if I'm reaching out to the same audience, right? So are there any parameters that you see or attributes that you see can work really well and which brands can probably, note it down and say, okay, yes, now this is something that I definitely need to look at. Yeah.
Sure. So let me actually talk about a few examples here. So that's a brilliant point that you made, Harsh. So what we've seen quite often is that viewers engage a whole lot more with content that they can relate to. So as you mentioned, K-dramas are all the rage these days, and any ad that comes out in a K-drama theme may actually resonate with customers. So just to give you a few examples over there, I think Cred has done this really, really well, where they have contextualized some of their ads, whether it is the nostalgia voting sensation on that side. So what data and insights can do at that point of time is basically understand whether the target audience of the advertiser, of the brand, the target audience, what are their interests? What programs do they watch? When do they watch it? When? So, for instance, now, of course, Myntra is one of the sponsors of IPL, and they obviously do manufacture a bunch of clothing for different teams altogether. But then data and insights could help you understand which games do I watch and probably which team am I a fan of. So, brands can take that information back and probably create a creative which is more suited to my likes, my dislikes. So I'm based out of Bangalore and I like Bangalore. So if I saw an ad which showed the Bangalore's IPL team, I would engage a lot more with it. I would be less likely to move away from that, and I would much more be likely to remember the ad as well. So that's the way I think creatives can also go back. And this has been effectively used quite often outside. There was KFC's brand, KFC's ad, which focused on Game of Thrones, hold the door, four-door thing. But somebody who's not watched Game of Thrones would not connect with it at all. So what happens is to make sure that you're connecting with the right audience, and in addition, understanding how many different ways there are to connect with the entire audience can be used very effectively through these data and insights. And to an extent, I'm guessing that sort of leads me to ask you, how are big brands thinking about using some of this targeted advertising? How do you come across requests on that side, and how do you handle those?
No, I think the brands are now looking at data in a very different way. Like I said, it's actually started to flow through the funnel from ad tech to martech to content tech as well. But I think one thing that definitely brands need to do a lot more is stop working in silos and bring all of this data together to ensure that it's serving, across the funnel. It's also helping the content creation team. It is also helping the marketing team, and it is also helping the advertising team, right? So I think that's how bigger brands are doing really well. A few of them are doing really well. I think a lot of them need to catch up on, and I think that's when the first party data would, definitely be a lot more of. It will come a lot more handy that way. A couple of examples in terms of, I think the way you need to start looking at video content is also beyond views, right? So we've also started looking at. So there is some formula that we've created which is called engagement coefficient, right? So it is not only dependent on your typical engagement matrix of views, likes, shares, etc., but it adds a weight to each of these engagement type, and then derive a coefficient out of it, which just gives you a lot better view of what's happening with the content, right? So for example, if I'm talking about a view, what is that weight for a 30-second view, and what is that weight for a 1-minute view, and what is that weight for a 90% view, right? What is that weight for a like? Is it definitely needs to be less than a share, right? So these are the metrics that we are going beyond. I think it'd be very exciting for us to now see going forward, probably 1 year, 2 years down the line, is how platforms and products can also bring in a lot more engagement onto the platform, beyond views or beyond the number of people, kind of viewing it. So I think that'd be interesting to see, is what I feel. Netflix, we spoke about this earlier, where Netflix Bandersnatch is a great example of how on-platform engagement can be looked at it in a completely different way. And then how that data can be probably fueled back to, the advertising team. And then, it just becomes a very good holistic approach of looking at data. So, yeah, I think that's what I'm seeing at the current trend, what's happening, what's going to happen in the next 6 months, and probably, what's the long-term view of this.
So yeah, absolutely. I think Bandersnatch is a great example in terms of where content really engage the audience. And one of the things that we've also noticed now, while social media platforms have video advertising, and there is a quick way of measuring, say, the likes and shares and things like that. Television, whether it is broadcast VOD or otherwise, even linear television, tends to have it's generally sort of understood as one of those mediums which provides you with a whole lot more viewer engagement by default, because people are providing that entire attention to it, sitting in the living room quite often in front of the television, watching the entire piece. And targeted advertising was not seen to be possible some years back on television, at least. And with OTT, that started to change. And what we've seen more recently is that's changing even with broadcast television. And that's where television can provide you with that brand safe environment with audio and visual cues where your users entire focus is on the content that is playing. So even when an ad plays, I mean, statistics have generally shown that the ad completion rates in television as well as video on demand tend to be much higher than, say, social media, and there is the entire focus that is there. So a lot of times what also happens is users, advertisers are happy to advertise over there because they can build a story. I remember multiple ads which would go over, which would have a continuity one after the other, because advertisers were comfortable with the fact that they knew their users, they had the reach, they had the frequency, and they could continue with the story, knowing that nobody would come in halfway in between, not knowing the rest of the story. So that's something that's also possible over here. And that's where data and insights can also provide you with that view of, how much are users engaged, what kind of things are they engaged with, how have they been working across over there.
Yeah, no, great. I think that's fun. I think it's almost tea time, and don't want the audience, and anyway we are connected virtually, so don't want the audience to doze off. So any questions that let's make it a little more interactive.
Yes.
Any questions that anyone has, maybe we could answer, and we can discuss and debate. Any alternate point of views, I think that'd be also fun. Patricia, Shamitro, do we have anything?
Hi Harsh, can you hear me?
Yes.
Lovely. I think we've got a great audience here. So I will take on the questions that have come from the audience. Okay, open to both of you. The first question is, how can platforms and advertisers see how advertisers are engaging with content? Any of you could take that.
I can go, actually.
Sure.
I think the way we need to now start looking at content is not only how, what the numbers are looking like, but also how these numbers are contributing to the eventual ROI as well, right? So for example, if we've seen a certain trend, and then we do some content around that trend, or we kind of advertise around that particular piece, I think it's very important for us to go look back and see whether it has worked or not, and keep improving this. That kind of agility is, I think, advertisers and marketers both need to bring together. Okay, I see something very okay. So, so I think that's the kind of agility that everyone will have to bring in together, and this can happen only when platforms and advertisers start working together a lot better in terms of what these engagement metrics are, and look a lot more refined version of what these views will mean and how the content has been engaged with. So that's my point of view. Arun, anything from your end?
So just to add on to that, of course, from the platform, viewing numbers can obviously come back in terms of how much is the ad viewed in certain cases as well. There is panel data that is also available, which can be ingested. But in addition, there can be third-party data. So some things that can be looked at are brands or advertisers can, of course, get to know what their ROI is coming out to be. But there can be some more obvious data in this on the lines of, say, search engine queries, as well as things like that, which can also be fed back into the platform to understand, how much of it really has been viewed and what kind of conversions have come through. So, as you mentioned, Harsh, it requires, of course, the advertisers as well as the platforms to work together to understand what these metrics are going to be. They could be different for each of them, and to be able to use these will also require some thoughts on their side, as well as to look at what kind of data they're able to pull up.
Great. So we have a lot of questions. I think it's a very, very interesting session. The second one is, how can we see what content works? A very, very interesting and fundamental question. Who wants to take that?
I think I'll start off with this one. So to understand what content works, first of all, it's the audience is going to directly tell you. I mean, the way they tell you is by giving you time on it. So if the content works, in a lot of cases, the audience will watch the content till the end, maybe 90% of it, or otherwise you will see audience tuning away from the content very quickly. And those are things that can be measured on the platform quite easily, and those are things that can be accepted as well. So that's where straight away that works. In addition, of course, there are other ways in which you can also understand if a content is working, probably by the amount of noise around the content, as well as various different panels understanding what the recall of the content is, what the recall of say the creatives around the content is. It's possible to measure all of these and have very scientific ways which are quite accurate in terms of understanding what content clicked versus what content didn't click.
Harsh?
My POV is very simple, right? Since it's a fundamental question, let's go back to basics. Simply put your objective, map it against what and how would you define the success of that particular content piece, that particular campaign, or that particular platform that you are advertising on. It's very simple. It just requires a pen and paper for you to kind of do that. So let's just kind of focus on that, and it should be very simple for us to understand whether this content is working or not. My only suggestion would be that give that content enough time to live, right? Content strategy, or whenever we are talking about content working, not working, I think one of the biggest mistakes that we've done as marketers is we expect everything to work very fast for us, right? So I think that's something that we need to be a little patient about, and look at it from a long-term perspective as well as short-term perspective, but have the view on the bigger picture as well. So yeah.
Another interesting one. How important is a cross-device strategy in the current scenario where TV viewing behavior is changing?
So let me try and start off with that. So TV viewing behavior, of course, is completely evolving. Like I mentioned earlier, it used to be the entire family sitting together watching Ramayana on a weekend in front of the television. Is what I remember from my childhood. Now, on the other hand, today what happens is I watch something on my mobile, my wife watches something on the PC, and the kid, of course, watches everything on large screen. And that's how it is. So a lot of younger audiences are shifting to mobile devices. And one of the challenges over here is that having the same ad content across different devices may result in we spoke about how the same content may be viewed on the same device or on different devices, or different content by the same user may be viewed on different devices as well. So to prevent ad fatigue, it is important to have a cross-device strategy, because you may want to present your ad, or you may want to present your creative a few times depending on your objectives. If it is a brand building exercise, you may want to present it, you may want to have a higher frequency. If it is more of a call to action, you may want to present it much lesser number of times. But then if it is not a multi-device strategy, you may be wasting impressions by showing the same person the same set of ads or the same set of creatives across both the television as well as mobile devices, as well as, say, on the web as well. And specifically reaching younger audiences who may not even be on the linear television side, or who may not be watching any programs on the set-top box, definitely requires you to have a cross-device strategy, especially if your target audience spans across multiple different age groups. Your thoughts on this, Harsh, as well?
I think it's not really a problem. It is actually a blessing in disguise, right? Because think of it from this perspective, that a multi-device strategy, or the fact that the consumer is not on one device anymore, gives you so much ground to cover, right? And also the fact that it also very effectively helps you reach the audience at the right time, at the right mindset, right? So think of this multi-device strategy to be complementing each other rather than replacing each other, right? So I think it just helps you get better reach, impact a lot more people, and the right people at the same time, right? On multiple devices with multiple messaging as well. So from a creative point of view, I would suggest that, look at it from a perspective that, hey, listen, if I am looking at TV and then, I'm probably talking to the same audience on a mobile device, what is the kind of creative that I would want to show on my TV, and what is the kind of creative that I would want to show on my mobile device? Like what I think Arun was saying, right? Maybe my CTA-led creative can go on my mobile devices, and my awareness-led creative can probably go on TV, and so on and so forth, right? So look at it from a perspective that it gives us a lot better reach, and should be complementing each other more than anything else. I remember one of the campaigns done by Hotstar was Go Solo, which was very well ahead of its time, to be honest. Which just actually spoke about this, right? That everyone has their own television sets now, and it's time that we look at it from that perspective as well. And one thing fits all doesn't work anymore.
Oh, wonderful. That was a wonderful session. Thank you, both of you. I think next time we hope to see you on ground, having a cup of coffee together. As part of the felicitation process, we have got lovely gift hampers, but unfortunately we can't hand you over here. We're going to get them couriered to you. Over to you, Namita. Thank you so much. Let's have a big round of applause for this session. Thank you so much for your time. Bye.